Harley Davidson. We haven't had a Harley on the bench for nearly 18 months, 2 years since her bike got sold. So welcome back to Delboy's Garage. Harley Davidson's back in the house. Welcome back to Delboy's Garage. Right, this obviously, as you appreciate, is not our Harley Davidson. This is a guest vehicle for the weekend, and it belongs to none other than my main man, Carlos. Come and say hello. We haven't had a guest in the garage so far, so this is a new one for us. This is my man Carlos. Carlos is the voice of the transitions. If you've listened to any of the transitions music, you can play it. This is the voice in question, so it's him that's guilty. You've got him to blame for it all. So say hello, right, mate?
Can I have your autograph?
No, they're a tenner each.
Hi everyone.
What we're going to do, Carlos...
I'm starstruck.
Starstruck. You're not going on strike, you've got work to do. Well,
This place is so much bigger than I thought it would be.
Yeah, you're taller in real life. Right, 48. What Carlos owns is a 48, and the standard problem is the 48-mile tank range, which means every time we go out, we have to wait for him to go in the petrol station and get more bloody petrol all the time. So we're going to take this 48 peanut tank, which is only for display purposes only, off and put a proper fuel tank on, and it's a very, very popular upgrade for the 48 bike and the 72, so it gives you a half decent tank range so you can actually get home as well as go.
That'd be a novelty.
That'd be a novelty. Stick around, stay tuned, see what happens. Now, we did change the tank on her bike a little while ago. I showed somebody how to do a tank lift, so I've gone over this before. There are 3 things to disconnect and a bolt and nut each end. It is really, really that simple. So the first thing I'll just show you how to undo the 2 mount points. Come on in, Pen. All we do is you've got a mount point at the back, quite simply got a little thread saver, plastic doodah on the end, keep that safe out the way. And then it's just an Allen key and a spanner. And all that is, we're just going to literally back it off. Just to start with. They do them up with a sort of lock like that. So you get this judderage, which is quite normal and quite common. Just be careful you don't slip and leave yourselves knuckleless. And all that is just a horrible Loctite or some sort of stuff they put on the mounts to keep them from shaking loose. Alright, the other one at the front, it's a straightforward nut and bolt straight through the frame, right through the frame completely. And it's not nearly as bad as the other side actually. Just back that one off too. Just back them both off, but don't take the bolts out yet because they hold the tank in place. Right, it's the same drill on the front. This stuff is always tight. These fasteners are always really tight, so be very careful. It's quite easy to slip. And you're in the proximity of your paintwork. As you can see, it's not difficult to do some horrible damage. If necessary, tape it up. Just get a load of masking tape over it, and it's a real safe way to do it. Right, so that's nice and loose. I'm going to leave the bolt through there for now, just to hold the tank in place, and then we're going to undo the other bits. Right, now we come to the fun bits. We've got 3 things to disconnect. There's an air breather, literally, which allows the expanding gasoline vapor to get safely away from the bike rather than hissing out the top of the tank cap, and the fuel supply itself, and the power supply, which is this cable here, the power supply that actually runs the pump, because in these fuel injected bikes the fuel pump and fuel filter lives inside the tank, so that's going to be part of this. We're going to take the whole tank, turn it upside down, and we've got to swap the contents of this tank over to the contents of, or to make it the contents of the new tank, and then seal it all and then put it back on and reconnect everything. So the 3 things to disconnect, I'll show you in order. The simplest of the 3, up under here, you've got that pen? Mm-hmm. Is just a breather, and it just pulls clean off like that. We do have to make a little modification to this, but we'll do that in a little while. It's a very, very simple mod, and we'll get to that shortly. So that's well and truly out the way. The next thing is the power supply. We're going to do the fuel last. Now you've got a little cable here, little wire, there's 4 wires in there that feed the power to the fuel pump inside. So we follow this. If you give it a little wiggle, you can see it there. It goes through this little keeper. So we're just going to take that out of the way. Okay, you'll see a little clip here, and these are quite easy to break because they're properly fixed into this bracket that holds all your loom. And the method to get them out is take some pointed pliers, pop them in the end, and pinch the end together and then it will come off like that. And you can see what you're doing, oops, with that. You've got this little barb there. So if you pull it and pull it and pull it and force it, you'll simply snap that barb there off and have to buy a new one of these. And if you just, like I said, pointed pliers in the end, pinch it and release it, and that releases the cable out of the way. Now the next little bit, do you want to hold that? That's quite handy actually. So rolling this down, there's the plug itself. Just gently lift it out, get it into the outside, and there, all you've got to do is undo this. And it's that little section there, which you simply press to release and pull it undone. It's as simple as that. The trick is, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to hold here and pull that. You're actually pulling the same piece. Get right down the bottom. Once that's pressed in, it just slides apart. Piece of cake, little waterproof plug. Now that is the entire power supply for the fuel system disconnected. Now at this point, it's worth mentioning, let's just shut this. It's worth mentioning at this point that a lot of people say, and you might see it in some of the manuals, to disconnect the power supply, and the easiest way to do that is turn the ignition on and pull the main fuse. Yeah, you can do it, but you really don't need to, because once you've disconnected that plug, there's no power going to the tank. We're only taking this tank off. We're doing everything else after this over there on the bench, so we're not coming back to the bike. And the only other thing we're going to do the electrical system at all today is stick that back in that hole when we're done with it. It really doesn't need for the power supply to be disconnected. Put the keys in the bike so that the proximity alarm keeps it from going off when you move it around, but as far as that's concerned, you don't need to disconnect the power if you don't want to. You can. You do what works for you, but personally, don't. Right, the final thing is the fuel supply, just here. It's ever so simple. You get a hose that takes it off to the fuel injection system, a little spring-loaded ball valve there, and a retaining clip there. All you do with this, very simply, I've seen people turn this for hours. All you do, push that back, and it releases the valve. It's as simple as that. I'll show you again. Put it back in, that's it reconnected, and all you do, press that back, and the little thing drops out underneath. Now there's a ball and spring in there that presses upwards and seals the hole, so no fuel is going to come out of that. Certainly no fuel is going to come out of here because there's a ball valve inside. So now we are ready to go. The entire system's disconnected, the tank's ready to lift clear of the bike, and all we've got to do is take the bolts out. So that one first, the bolts clear out of the way. Just take care. Screwed through the paint. It's that thing. There it is. Same on the front. Catch all the washers, and now we're good to go. So just lift this little tiny thing up, and you'll see everything is free. There it is. One very tiny fuel tank. Good to man or beast, is it? Bloody thing. Right, let's pop it on the bench. Right, reminds me, cup of tea.
Bike.
Yeah, look at that.
Go on.
In the meantime, how'd you do it?
How'd you clean it?
Delboy, give us a demonstration on how to.
You can see he's a rock star, can't you? Good for absolutely nothing. Can't do a single, can't clean a bike even. Can play a mean song, but he can't clean his bike. Girl.
We'll leave you to it.
Clean it. Clean it.
Look at that. Doesn't need cleaning.
Right. So the first thing to do with your tank is prepare somewhere before you start, somewhere to put it where it's safe and it's not going to be hurt. Turn it up on its upside down. I've done quite simply with this workmate. Big gap in the middle, big enough for it not too big that it falls down, only that sort of width. And the tank can sit neatly on there upside down, and that is nice and secure, ready for us to deal with the base unit. Now the base unit under these holds quite a lot of stuff. You need to take these 5 bolts, which is the task at hand, and
pulses 50-foot high through the fumes and haulage. It's sometimes hard to know.
Right, and there it is.
Look at the size of that.
Taliban device. That's your, that is inside the tank of every Harley Davidson. They vary differently, and when you do the major service, the 10,000 mile service, you have to clean this filter and change it and so on. So that's something that has to come out, and you can understand now why the dealer charges what they do. Right, so that's that tank done with. What we're going to do now is just going to access the last little bit of fuel that's down there, ready to put in the other tank, and then we're going to fit this and put the whole lot back together. Okay, so this is what Carlos has chosen. It's a standard 883 iron tank, which I think is a fantastic upgrade. You can put the 4-something gallon flat pancake tank, but I think it completely destroys the look of the 48, which is a bobber style bike, and you do need that peanut tank. I think it's very important. You bought a bike, what are they, 10 grand, 11, 12 grand I think now. Yeah. Loads and loads of money. You're not going to go and ruin that look and make it into a touring bike for commuting. It's not all about that, is it? It is about the look, and I think the iron tank is rather fantastic. These are an absolutely colossal investment. How much are these from Harley, you know?
About just over a grand.
£1,000. £1,000. Bag of sand, mate. But honestly, I think you got a deal from the States. This has got a tiny little nick, which I think is a real good score, mate. Absolutely fantastic. So what we're going to do with this is flip it over. It's quite simple. Feel for any little swoosh is all good. And here we have the space where everything goes back in. Now, quite simply, on this edge, give it a little feel around with your fingers. It's an alien tank. We don't know where it's come from. There's no little nicks there or anything. But I'm going to do one thing just to prepare that before we put everything back together. I'll show you what we do. Alright, what I'm going to do first of all is just a little bit of ordinary grease. Regular, straightforward, ordinary grease. Nothing more. Certainly do not put any sealant on here. Harley don't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend it. You don't need it because it's not, the seal itself is not achieved with any form of liquid sealant or anything else. This grease is purely for one reason. Just get it over there nice and not too much. So all it is a little smear of grease around there. Quite simply, all that does, where you have this rubber seal here, this is a little rubber gasket. It's a very special, very expensive rubber gasket that comes new. You don't have to replace it. It's multi-use. You can use it more than once. You press it down into its recess there. Now, the purpose of the grease is very simple. It allows this to slide around and find its angle. If you look at a rubber seal and you press it against something, the minute you put pressure on it, the rubber, the stiction of the rubber is going to stop it from moving. If you put grease between the surface, as you squeeze the rubber and the metal together, the rubber just oozes into its favourite place where it naturally sits, and you get a perfect seal every time. You don't end up with it rucked or folded or not sealing properly. It just helps it make a perfect seal. And the fact that it's a regular LM grease, it's dissolvable by petrol, so any on the inside, any residue that oozes inwards is simply going to be dissolved in the petrol and burned away, so there'll be nothing to contaminate the fuel or the filter or anything else in the bike. So now we've got the task of getting that 2 pints into a 1 pint pot. Now the trick is, obviously, as you can see, the top of the filter there, that bends that way. So start by going in that way. And it's a little bit like the old fairground toy trick when you were a kid. Try and get it in without touching the sides. Try and get everything
Otherwise the buzzer goes off.
Yeah. There, you do literally have to squeeze it at that point there, that goes in, and it will drop down nicely into place. A little bit of a jiggle on it because it really is as big as it can possibly be. There we are. Now you'll feel, because you put the grease on there, that slides around. So give it a little settle down. Make sure before you put that down that that rubber gasket is pushed all the way down into its recess in the base plate, because if it's not, if it's sticking out and it ends up folding, it's just going to leak. And then we do is pop our bolts back.
The prize is stateside of Nuevo Laredo. Every siren has a weak spot. As everything.
Put your tank back on. These have a fun habit of slamming down onto the tank or onto the top tube, and then the bolt holes don't line up. So I'll show you a little trick I always use is put a rag there. It does two things. It protects the tank from going too low because you can just pull that out afterwards, and also it stops the tank from hitting this and causing any damage. So when you're working on a customer's bike, in front of them, no pressure. Right, so pop that on there. That's it. Wire over that side. That's better. Gently down on top. Perfect. Now that lines up the bolt hole through there. Right the way through. Does that come out the other side?
It can.
Ta-da! And the rear one. Not only but also. See, it was the right length. There we go. Okay. And on the front, just before we do the bolt up or put the nut on or anything, just gradually take that out. So you haven't had, and you see, if you look at the front here, that's the reason to do that. You've got literally 6 mil, 5 or 6 mil of clearance on that tank. And that's quite standard, quite normal, but it's enough that when you fit in the tank, if you make a little accident, move forward, you can just twat it against it and cause damage, which is a real shame, especially if the customer's watching.
Customer, and I thought I was your mate.
I ain't got no mates. I've got no mates. Billy, no mates, me. Right. And then just do these. All I'm going to do with these is just pop the nuts on the end, purely to hold them on so they don't come off. Right, the first and easiest thing, pop that in there. We've got about half a pint of fuel in place, just to make sure that this didn't leak before we fitted the tank, and that's now fine. And that's released the fuel from there into the system, and there's no leakage, so that's good. Next one is the wiring. Come back to where we were, fit this, or pop it back in first, which is down there. Snap it back in place. Little test to make sure it's not loose. Pop it in its little plastic key, keep the weather off it. It also keeps it visually attractive as well. Wiring plugs and bits of harness hanging everywhere. There it is. Lovely. And then that wire goes into there. And snap it in the hole there. That's it. So we're all back in place. This is a battery charger. Now we just have to make a little modification. Now on the 48, this is something that you do have to make. You do have to get the cutting tools out, even while he's looking. And this is too long. On the 48, this overflow pipe is right up here, so they give you this affair, and that's fine. But on this bike, it's there. Now you cannot do that because that's just a bit shit. Basically, all you need to do is trim that off. Take this end off here. We're going to pop that in place like that to get a measure. Bring this to its happiest possible position, which I think will be like that. And all I'm going to do is measure to there, trim that off, and then I'll show you how we fit this in. Right, and all it involves is a little guesstimation. This is just a plastic cheap bit of hose. Honestly, it doesn't cost much. You can replace that for a few pounds if you want to go back to your 48 tank. So in this instance, all you do, measure it to about there. That's about right. Trim that off there, like that. And what I'm going to do in this instance, that, as you can see, that had a little collar here to hold that in place, factory, but now it doesn't have that. Now it will go in like that, and it will stay in there, and that's absolutely fine. But what I'm going to do is go a stage further. I do this all the time, is a bit of super glue, and I reach, so I said it again, cheers.
Must be the
I really mean, must be the fumes, it's the super glue, baby. All you do is a dot, that's it, like that. Just a dot, one tiny little dot, a tiny little shade of it, and pop that in there. That's it. Now that will stop it coming out, and it's a beautiful modification, just like that. Now the beauty of that is, if you ever want to take that rubber end off, there's just a tiny fraction, just a little shade of super glue in there. All you do is hold on to one, twist it, and it will crack the glue out the way, and it will come off okay, but it won't come out accidentally and be breathing all over your 70 quid hipster jeans. Sorry mate, did you say? So there we go, that is a nice little mod, and it's now ready for some fuel. Okay, let's get the seat on. Drink, mate.
Awesome.
Awesome dudes.
Super happy.
Let's see. There we go. This is the bit that's the most dangerous. Complacent at the end of the job. Skid. There we are. Right, should we fire it up? We know she's got prime. Now, due to the nature of Harley Davidson's, the way they work with the fuel tank, if you've done anything wrong, it simply won't start because the fuel supply has to be connected. That's to say that spring-loaded valve, that has to be properly connected. The plug has to be properly connected, and there mustn't be any leaks. If it doesn't pressurise properly, if anything's wrong, it just won't start. So the fact that starts up shows I've done a good job. Would you get outside and have a look around? Yeah. Let's get outside in the daylight.
And when the face you trust most is no longer the one on which you can depend, when the fight feels futile and life's injustice wins, where's my sunlight when the shitstorm begins? It's not when it's time. It's not when it's time.
Right, you sure this is the right way to do an outro? Like Bill and Ted, aren't we?
Excellent, dude. Party on.
Looks like Dumb and Dumber to me.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Well, there we are, folks. Look, thanks for watching. It's just a very simple way to upgrade your 48, so you've got some proper tank range, some proper mileage. What is it, 40, 50 miles on it before?
55 is the best I've had.
55, and that's pushing it for the last 5.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think you should get about 90 miles, 70 to 90 miles, depending on how you ride it. Once you've done that, you've got stage 1 as well. And it does make a good upgrade. I think you paid about £500 for the tanks.
That's right, yeah.
You can get them cheaply if you look on eBay. And quite often, you might find somebody who wants to bobber their iron and they'll do you a deal on exchange. So there's different ways to skin a cat. So there we go. Thanks for watching. I'm afraid there won't be a Harley on the bench again for another time unless you want something else done. But that's just been a little bit of a return to our favourite bike just for the once. Okay, so thanks for watching. Take it easy, ride safe.
Nice one. Thanks for that, buddy.
Cheers, dude.
Awesome. Thank
See you next time.
Cheers.
Never gonna find a home in backs of boxcars